Okay, in the previous video, we talked about z-scores and how to go from, you know, your raw score and then given average, given standard deviation, and what is your z-score. Now, this video is going to be basically going in all directions. Okay, I'm going to give you the z-score. I can give you the average, the standard deviation. I'll tell you, hey, what's the raw score, or I can give you, the z-score, the your score, the average, and I tell you, hey, what's the standard deviation. So basically, if you notice, there's to use this equation here, there's four things, or four variables. If I give you three of the variables, then that means you have one that you can basically solve for. So that's this video here. It's going to be super straightforward, I hope, and let's go ahead and let's start with this one. You just have to read the problem very, very carefully, okay? So let's see. The standard deviation of scores on a history exam was 7.2, okay? So that means standard deviation is equal to 7.2 if Max scored a 74. So that's Max's score. So what that means is that's his raw score. So Max scored 74 and his z-score. So you see, that's how these problems are different. I'm going to give you the z-score. The z-score is negative 1.25. Find the mean score of the exam. So what we're actually looking for, we are looking for what is the mean. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the same exact equation that we've been using in the previous video. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug in everything I know. So I have an equal sign, I have a fraction, I have a subtraction sign there, okay? All I did was basically like leave blank spaces there. So on the left, I know I need to put my z-score, right, on the left of the equal sign. So my z-score is negative 1.25, so negative 1.25, yeah, that's a decimal. Let's see, then the next space is his raw score, which is a 74. And then it's the average, which is, where's it at? Oh, okay, well, there you go. That's what we don't have. So you can either leave it as x bar, or you can even just put x there, but it'll get confusing. So just leave it exactly how this equation here says it. And then standard deviation is 7.2. Okay, so there you go. This is the equation that we need to solve, and we need to solve for x bar, which is the mean. One quick way to do this, and the way that I like to do it, is always convert the left side to a fraction if it isn't already, just by putting it over 1, and then you can go ahead and just cross multiply and then do your work like that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is do this circle first by cross multiplying. So it'll be 1 times 74 minus x bar, which I think by now we should be able to solve it. Let me go ahead and clear up some space here so we can do it. So 1 times that is just going to give us that. So that's really nice. So I'm going to get 74 minus x bar is equal to, and then this here, even though it looks weird, that's our variable. That's what we're trying to look for. And then it'll be negative, my next one, it'll be negative 1.25. So calculator, times 7.2. So that's going to be equal to negative 9. After this, now it just becomes solving for the variable. If you want to, you can rewrite this equation just to make it easier for you, like that. The only thing you need to be careful with is this x is not equal to that x. Okay, you need to understand it's just a variable. That's why I kind of don't like doing it this way. Okay, just keep it as x bar, just keep it as x or sd or z, whatever this equation here tells you. All right, so what this means here, I can solve it by subtracting 74 on both sides. Then I'll get negative x bar is equal to, where's that, negative 83. Remember, I'm trying to solve for x bar, not negative x bar, so we can go ahead and you can either multiply both sides by negative 1 or divide, whichever one you guys feel more comfortable with. And so x bar is equal to 83. What that means is that the average is 83. Now, let's see, does it make sense? His z-score was a negative, so that means it was below the average, and his score was a 74, which is below 83. So then that checks out, okay? And so that's how you do these problems, right? For this one, we were trying to find the mean. We can basically solve for any of these 4 variables given 3 bits of information. So let's go ahead with this one. Pause the video, see if you can figure it out. Reading the problem, we get standard deviation of the number of homes sold last year was 2.5. So we know standard deviation is equal to 2.5. if Lucas sold 15 homes, so this is how many homes Lucas sells. So that means that's the raw score, 15. And his z-score was 1.2. So it's actually a very similar problem to the one before because we're looking for the mean. Okay. So let's go ahead, set up our equation, and then see if we can solve it. So z-score 1.2 is equal to fraction with a minus sign in the middle. Let's see, it's raw score first, so that's 15. We're looking for the mean, so that means I leave it as x bar, and the standard deviation is 2.5. So pretty much the exact same way, okay? We're going to put this over 1 and then cross multiply. So it'll be, what is that, 15 minus x bar, because that's going to be times 1. So it's just going to be the same thing. And then it'll be 1.2 times 2.5. I'm using a calculator. Oh, cool, so that's equal to 3. Just to do this problem a little bit different, if you want, you can do plus x bar. That's moving it here. You're basically just getting rid of the fact that it's negative. These two are not considered like terms, so we don't bring them together. So then I can go ahead and do minus 3 on both sides to try to isolate my variable. I think some of you guys are probably not going to like that way better than the one before where we can just divide by -1 at the end. But, you know, you get the same answer. So just trying to show you. So the mean is equal to 12. All right. Let's go ahead and see if that makes sense. The mean is equal to 12. Lucas's score was a 15, so it's obviously higher than the mean. And that makes sense because that means his average, his z-score, sorry, is positive. So there you go. Let's go ahead to the next one. It's a little bit different. Be very careful, read the problem. The mean number of push-ups was 68. That's a lot of push-ups. So the mean number of push-ups is 68 with a standard deviation of 12. If Janet's z-score was negative 2.25, yeah, that sounds like my z-score actually. But anyways, for this anyways. How many push-ups did she do? So if you're actually looking at, you know, what I have here on this side, what I'm missing is actually the raw score, right? How many did Janet actually do? So then that means the equation is set up a little bit differently. So z-score is first, negative 2.25 is equal to her raw score, which we don't know, the average, which is 68, and then the standard deviation, which ends up being 12. Okay, so this is already how it's different. I'm going to go ahead and put this over 1. Sorry, this looks like a plus sign, but it's technically a little decimal. So there you go. Put it over 1, and let's go ahead and let's cross multiply. So x minus 68 times 1, which, I mean, there you go. And then it'll be negative 2.25. Remember, guys, calculator. Negative 2.25 times 12, which is equal to negative 27. And then we're going to go ahead, isolate the variable, add 68 on both sides. So notice how this x here doesn't have a negative in front of it, right? Because we're solving for the raw score, which the raw score doesn't have a negative in front of it, as opposed to the average, which does have a negative in front of it. So you have to be careful, right? Don't just automatically solve problems the exact same way every single time. This is extremely important. Do this step, okay? It'll organize your thoughts and it'll organize your work. And then the last one is just going to be 68 minus 27 or negative 27 plus 68, whatever you want to do. So x is equal to 41. So what this means, how many push-ups did she do? Well, what's her name? Janet did 41 push-ups, which is a lot to begin with. And there you go. Okay, so just already notice this problem to the previous problem, how different they're solved. Pause the video, see if you can do it by yourself. A set of data has a mean of 48. Okay, so that's the mean. Standard deviation of 5. If a data value in this set has a z-score of 0.8, so the z-score is 0.8, what is the data value? So if you notice, 3 I gave you, the one that I'm missing is the raw score, okay? And that's what the data value means. You know, what's the raw score? So let's go ahead and let's set up my equation, I guess. Z is 0.8 equals to, let's see, raw score, which we don't know, average, which is 48, standard deviation, which is 5. Okay, I can go ahead, put this over 1, and then cross multiply. 1 times x minus 48, that's really nice because there you go. And then I think I could do that with, without using a calculator. So there you go. All right, so then we go ahead and solve for the variable plus 48 on both sides. So x is equal to, what is that, 52, I think. So the data value is 52. Notice how we have no idea what this is about, but whatever. X is equal to 52. We finish, we move on, okay? Let's go ahead. Let's do this one. Remember, don't freak yourself out. Still solve the problem. Not all problems look exactly the same, okay? The mean weight is 38. Cool. So that's the mean. If a certain dog in the show has a z-score of 0, how much does it weigh? Okay, so this is a little weird because how much does it weigh? So we're asking for the raw score. But if you notice, I only gave you 2 of them, and I didn't give you the standard deviation. So what's going on here? Let's go ahead and let's just set up the problem and see what's going on. So 0 is equal to, well, we don't have this one. Actually, you know what? Let me leave it as the standard deviation, SSD. We are looking for this one. And then the mean is 38. Well, you really have to think about it. Like, look at this fraction here. What can I do to get this to equal to 0? Okay, so you have to be careful here. You have to think about it. The z-score is 0. That means this particular dog is completely average when we're talking about weight. So what that means is that the z-score is telling us that it's exactly the average. That dog is exactly average. So we know that the weight is actually also 38 pounds. Okay, and it's really the only number that'll work here to plug in to either of these two. Remember, standard deviation, this is from before, standard deviation can never be 0, okay, because then you get a fraction with the 0, and I forget what the word is called right now, but whatever. Okay, so you need to be careful here. So this is our final answer. I know I boxed 2 things, but there you go. This is our final answer. The weight is 38 pounds because since the z-score is equal to 0, that means the dog is completely average when it comes to the weight. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and this will be our last example. Really try it out by yourself. Really read the question carefully, okay? So the mean number of minutes spent working out at the gym, 45 minutes. All right, so we got mean, which is 45 minutes. We got standard deviation of 8. Ricky's z-score was 1.75. How many minutes above the mean did he spend working out? So there are 2 different ways of solving this, okay? So how many minutes above the mean? So technically I need you to understand that this right here, that is not going to be the final answer because this is going to end up being how many minutes did he exercise, okay? So this is the minutes that he exercised. I think I'm spelling it right, whatever. But now the question is not saying how many minutes did he exercise. The question is saying how many minutes above the mean. So basically all you're going to end up doing is after you calculate this number, you are going to subtract it with that number, and then that's the difference. That's how many minutes above the mean. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is you can truly understand the relationship between these 2 numbers and how they relate to mean, and then figure it out like that. But I'm not going to really get into that one right now. Maybe the last like 30 seconds of this video. So for right now, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solve for this one and then do the subtraction way that I was talking about. So let's go ahead, and z-score is 1.75. We're looking for this one, not as a final answer, but as a way to help us out. Then let's see, standard deviation is 8. Let's go put this over 1, cross multiply. It'll be x minus 45 equals 1.75 times 8, which is equal to 14. And then I'm going to go ahead and add 45 to both sides. And then that's going to give me x is equal to, what is that, 59. So what this means is that, what's his name? Ricky exercised for 59 minutes, but that's not the question, right? Remember, that is not the question. The question is asking how many minutes above the mean. Well, if the mean was 45, how many minutes above the mean did he spend working out?